Hello, everybody. Welcome to Flea Market Fantasy number 18. This is our big Christmas episode. I'm your co-host, Micah, and as always, I'm joined by...
Michael Dell of the LCS Hockey Radio Show.
So today's a very special episode because I have a special guest with us. This is the producer of the Comic Book Syndicate. She's been part of the cast and crew for, I think, 11 or 12
years. The
years.
better part of a decade.
Yeah, more than a third or fourth of her life, if you can believe that.
A third or fourth.
We're not sure. So anyway, this is Jolie. Say hi, Jolie.
Hi, everybody.
Well, it's G.I. Jolie.
That's right, G.I. Jolie. Oh, I gave away your secret identity.
Yeah, you got to hide the identity. But right. Jolie, so good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you, too.
Yes. I wish it was under better circumstances than this book that we're going to be doing.
That's Mike Dell's thing. He likes to attack every comic I pick, no matter how good it is. Okay, so let's get started.
Jolie, are you ever embarrassed at the quality of Mike L's comic book picks?
Eternally.
Well, this is one of my favorites. So
mode is embarrassment.
This is going to be a fun conversation. Okay, so how do you want to do this? Now, just so everyone knows, this comic that I picked has many a story in it. It's about, I don't know how many, 8? I'm not sure.
Yeah, about 7 too many. Hey, well, why don't you tell them what the comic book is, Michael? We haven't announced it officially.
But then they'll know how good it is. The comic is called Christmas with the Superheroes, number 2.
Yeah,
Only 2 of them were ever made. Anyway.
Christmas with the Superheroes, number 2. This is from what, 1989? Is that correct?
1989. You are correct. So when this came out, this was in the wake of, Batmania and all that stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the big Batman movie had just come out. Now, Jolie, we were chatting a little before the show. You actually own this book?
Yeah, I think I scraped it out of the bottom of a bin for a quarter. And I thought, oh, look at all those jolly little elves on the cover hanging out with the Justice League. That's worth this shiny silver loony. Wait, sorry, quarter.
I think it's worth $3.65 Canadian, which is what I paid in 1989.
Holy hell! Yeah, I'm looking at the cover price. I didn't even notice that. That's pretty pricey for 1989, right?
It was, but it was worth it. I saved up for it.
It was a lot of pages.
I guess. Let's talk about the cover here real quick. Jolie mentioned that there's a bunch of elves. And they're in like Santa's workshop with all the superheroes.
Yeah, you know what? I don't actually mind the cover. Like all comic books, the cover is what draws you in, and it's a filthy trick.
To be honest, I hate this cover. I like the texture of some of the items, but the way the superheroes are drawn is really poor. I do like the idea of what they're doing, but I don't like the actual drawing.
Why do the elves all have like dots in the middle of their forehead and on their cheeks?
Because it's where they are the most rosy.
Apparently, that's weird. Looks like they have some sort of abnormal growths.
Oh yeah, like a reverse vitiligo.
And then, so we got all the superheroes here, and they're making toys and stuff with Santa. And we got Plastic Man, Flash, Hawkman. First, dig Wonder Woman, man. She's like what the kids like to say is thick.
She has childbearing hips in this image.
Yes, very much. And then look at Aquaman's hair. What is going on there?
Not sure. That's a good point. He's also, if you notice, his costume is a little bit lower cut than usual. He's got a V going there.
It is very low cut.
It's right into the cleavage.
Mm-hmm.
We got Batman and Nightwing. I don't know what's going on there with Nightwing and Batman. That's a little creepy.
Yeah. Like even Hawkman's mask looks ridiculous.
We got Superman. Yeah, so everyone's there. Now, I looked up. Do you know who the artist is here, Mike L?
I actually don't know because I can't see his signature and I can't. Oh, it's someone Mulseed or Mulsetti?
I looked it up, and I guess 2 guys were credited with it, and so I'm sure one was the inker, but neither one was very prominent in DC. They just did a handful of things. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cover full of non-existent creatures existing and creating teddy bears with another handful of non-existent creatures. So,
but the other key detail here on the cover is right above the title there. It says "All New."
Yes.
There's some pixies up there and stuff. says all new, because Michael, you explained to me the last time that this is obviously an issue 2 of this, the 2-issue run. And issue 1, you said, was all reprints.
That's correct. That's correct.
So they wanted to make sure the kids out there knew this was all new.
Exactly.
We hired people to write stories.
And just so you know, I do have Christmas with the Superheroes #1.
Yeah, I had a guess you probably did. Now, let me ask you this, Michael. Do you have that issue #1 handy, or do you remember what the cover was? Because I looked at the cover, and it's a bunch of superheroes around a Christmas tree, and I don't recognize one of the superheroes.
Do you want me to look it up quick?
Well, I mean, if you can, but if you Google it up. But
we have to Google. It's pretty quick here.
Yeah, it's like the Justice League, and then there's a guy in the back with the tree. I'm guessing he might be one of those Legion of the Superhero kids.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen
Wildfire.
Wow, so he is a Legion of Superheroes fella?
Yes, he is. Yep.
Wildfire. Now, it seems weird that he's there, right? Like, it's like, how did he get in?
Well, that's a great point. I think the only reason is because there is a Legion of Superheroes story in the issue. And whereas they could have used anyone in the Legion, maybe John Byrne just liked that character, so he threw him in there.
Yeah, he just seems strange. Like he doesn't belong. But anyway. All right. At least I learned something. Wildfire. All right.
Costume designed by Dave Cockrum, for the record.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
How about that? Jolie, by the way, when we have a guest on, we always ask, how did you get in comic books? I got to tell you, Jolie, when Michael told me you were going to be a guest on the show, I just assumed right out of the gate, we're going to talk Archie.
Oh, like this show?
Yeah, like when you were coming on. No, the comic book. Didn't you grew up reading Archie?
I grew up reading everything. The moment that literacy clicked on in my brain, I read anything I could get my hands on, and that included comics. So they had a place right beside magazines at the grocery store, so if I could grab it, it was in the cart. Wow,
how about that? Do you remember what, like, the first thing you really loved in comics? Like, what the first issue was that really won you over?
Not really. It was, like, the standouts. I have standouts. I don't remember the first issue I read. Like, I would really, really have to think about this because I started reading at a very young age. The standouts for me were just the characters. So I would say, like, Katie Keene and the Pussycats were, like, big.
Hold on one second. I have no idea who Katie Keene is.
They're like side characters. They're like side stories that, like, you know how she's a supermodel. They would write backups for these Archie comics when they did the like magazine style ones. And the moment I discovered these backup stories outside of the digest format, I like fell in love with those characters instead. So we had like Sabrina, we had Katie Keene, and then there was like Josie and the Pussycats. And then suddenly, like, I didn't like any of the regular staple characters anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, did you have a preference for DC or Marvel at all?
Not even in the slightest. I mostly only heard about. I was one of those kids that I had never had an education in the difference between the two. So they were just icons in my mind. It was just names. They didn't belong to one house or another.
That's a shame, because I'm Team Marvel, of course.
Yes, we know that well.
So, but anyway, all right. Well, there you go. There's the background of Jolie getting into comic books. All right, Michael, why don't you take it away? Explain what we got here with Christmas with the Superheroes.
So, as we said earlier, we've got a bunch of different stories, but the opening story is by a feller named Paul Chadwick, who I'm sure you've done some research on and you can talk about later, right?
I have not done any research for any of these.
Are you kidding me?
No, because there's too many. There's like 30 creators. I'm not researching.
Carnation? Okay, so I'll just tell you right now, Paul Chadwick, he started out as an artist at Marvel, and he drew the last 2 or 3 issues of Dazzler.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, but he had ideas for a character that he wanted to use for Epic Illustrated. And instead of publishing it through Epic, which was owned by Marvel, he decided to bring it to Dark Horse. So he kept all the rights to the character, blah, blah, blah. And it was called Concrete. And for those that don't know, Concrete is kind of a more adult or serious take on the concept of the Thing. Fantastic Four, The Thing. So instead of a guy made out of orange rocks, it's a guy trapped in the body of kind of like someone, it's like organic concrete. And it's not a superhero book. It's more like, you know, an HBO show or just a drama about someone that happens to have a concrete body. And anyway, it's really good. So this, as far as I know, is the only work he ever did for DC, to my knowledge. And so in this story, it's basically a guy whose car is broke down by the side of the road, and he's on the verge of freezing to death because it's so cold and no one's stopping to help him, blah, blah, blah. So he gets into his car and pulls out a revolver.
Yes.
That is loaded with bullets, and then he writes, you know, a miniature suicide note that says, "I'm sorry, but no one will stop, and I just can't stand the cold." And he's getting ready. He puts the gun right up to his chin. He's about to pull the trigger.
Yep.
And lo and behold, knock, knock, who is at his car window but Superman?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so Superman gets into the car with him, and it's kind of a cool thing because he uses his heat vision to warm him up, and then uses heat vision to warm up the engine. Sorry, go ahead, Mike Dell.
Well, this is all very creepy what's happening here. All right. Well, he shows up and he knocks on the window like a space. Well, I was going to say space hooker, like our Star Wars issue, but no, he's like a Winterland prostitute. He knocks on the door and he says, "Hey, may I get in with you?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And then Superman looks over at him and goes, "Are you as cold as you look? I could warm you up."
Yeah, I know.
And the guy's like, "But please." And he starts looking at him, and he's using the heat vision on him. And the guy's like, "I can't tell you how good." It's just so weird.
I know.
So weird.
I thought I'd never be warm again.
Well, in the original version, they actually disrobe and get into a sleeping bag together, but they couldn't use that version. So
it's Superman, male prostitute. There he is. So, yes.
So it's cool because he's warming this guy up with his heat vision, but then he's also warming up the engine. But he says that it'll take longer to warm up the engine because he doesn't want the battery to crack or whatever, the generator to crack. And so that gives them time to have a little chat, right?
Yes.
It's Superman. Sorry, were you going to say something, Mike Dell?
Oh, I should say also this is called Ex Machina,
right?
The title of this little story. And that's a literary device where, you know, like a solution just comes out of nowhere. Like a thought, you know. So, boom, Superman shows up at the door. Or at the window, knocking on the window, just out of nowhere to save the day. Yep. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
If a gigolo that was shaped like Superman walked up to any one of my doors casually and knocked, I wouldn't turn him away either. Invite him right on in.
Yeah. It's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Michael. So Superman starts talking to the guy, and the guy's life is falling apart. He just got officially divorced, or at least separated, and he helped his wife move in somewhere else. And he's an older fella. Right. You know, he's late 50s, I would say. And he's also got some sort of incurable disease.
Yeah.
Right.
It just keeps getting worse. Yep.
Yeah. Good Lord. So what does Superman do?
So Superman basically gives him a little pep talk.
Yeah.
And kind of convinces him, you know, not to kill himself, and B, that, you know, he should try to find something to do for Christmas. And so he finds out that the guy has a daughter, but then the guy says that he hasn't spoken to his daughter in years. And so Superman basically says, well, you know, I'm sure she'd still be happy to see you, and blah, blah, blah. And so finally the guy relents and is like, okay, well, you know, I'll follow your advice. And at the end of the conversation, Superman says, I'd like to think I didn't stop here for nothing. So the guy's kind of thinking, and he's like, okay, well, you know what? I'll call her. So then Superman finishes fixing up the engine, and then he basically, it is between the lines, but he offers this guy to drive to. Yeah,
he doesn't want him to be alone on Christmas. Because you know, just in case your daughter doesn't want to see you, I get it. But I know these two really cool older couple. Just take the next exit. Yeah. Call them. Let them know that Superman sent you, and they will gladly stuff you with turkey.
So
nice is that?
So then and then there's also a cool thing where Superman has the gun in his hand. You see him squeeze his hand, and then as he's flying away, the pieces of the revolver all falling behind him. Then in the last panel, you see the guy driving and it says exit 20, Smallville. So obviously he's going to Ma and Pa Kent's house, right?
Yeah, and Ma and Pa Kent, they're just enjoying their evening all by themselves, having a nice time. And then some creep shows up. And they're like, Why do we got to put up with this guy? Thanks, Superman. Thanks a lot.
Do you think Superman's on his way there, or was just there?
He said he was going to call him to let him know. So, but here's what confuses me a little bit. Like this car, he fixes it up momentarily, but he says like, you still got to get your V belt fixed, and it's going to be tough to do on Christmas night. You won't be able to get too far on just your battery. So basically, what if Superman flies away and like the car stalls out 10 feet down the road, and he's
going to kill himself, obviously.
Yeah.
So
yeah, see, that's what I'm concerned about.
Himself with the leftover shards of the right.
Yeah.
Hey, Superman, why don't you just pick up the car and fly him to Ma and Pa Kent's house, or fly him to a garage that can fix the car? But no, he's like, have fun driving on these icy roads all the way to Smallville. I'll see you later, chump. And he just flies away.
It's probably best not to think about it too much, because you're right. He could have just solved this in like a millisecond, just flew him to where he wanted to go anyway. But oh well.
So in my version of the story, in my head, the car stalls out and he does end up killing himself.
Oh yeah, okay.
Or freezing to death, which is also nice.
Yes. At least it spares Ma and Pa Kent the trouble of putting up with him. Man, that's terrible. Yeah.
Feeding that third extra unnecessary mouth.
Yes.
Oh, annoying.
Hearing him yap about his failed marriage all done. Oh, no, I don't want to hear this. It's Christmas.
Well, anyway. Do you know what I find really funny too is that, or kind of strange, I don't know, is that not only is he on his way from moving his wife, but like not the next story, but the story after that, which is Wonder Woman's story, is the story of a woman who's newly divorced and she's at someone else's house. I was like, are these two connected? I don't know.
Do you think
if they are, this means that this guy's a minister of the church?
Yeah, I don't think. I never thought of that, but that would be much better if they were connected. But yeah, I don't think they are.
I don't think they are. But I did notice that they were both divorced. Yeah, I did notice that.
Maybe let's go to the Wonder Woman. Let's jump ahead and talk Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah, are we skipping the Batman story?
Let's save Batman.
Yeah, we'll come back to Batman after Wonder Woman. But since Jolie did bring it up,
Mike, at the bottom of the pile and then move onwards. And surely Wonder Woman's is the next stinker. So,
well, Michael, is there anything else you'd like to say about that Superman story?
Well, only that Paul Chadwick is one of my favorite writers, and that's one of my favorite Superman stories. But let's jump to
All right.
Well, it's not one of my favorite, but it's definitely one that I can read and reread. I mean, one of the things I don't like about most superhero comics is so many of the stories rely on continuity and crossovers and all that stuff, right? And at least this is a story you can just read without knowing anything else about Superman, right?
Yeah, I suppose the heart is in the right place with that story.
Yeah, I definitely like it. Now, I'm not going to say anything about Wonder Woman. I'll let Jolie take it, but it is good. But one of the things is I don't know who any of these characters are, so that's one weakness about it. But Jolie, if you want to, do you want to do the plot summary on this one?
I can barely know who these people are too. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what is happening when we are first introduced to everything, but it looks like she's having some kind of fever dream about the mascara. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on. And then it goes right into the very first page of the action in a story called Gifts by Eric Shanowar. There's tons of great people on this story. Mm-hmm. Mark Waid is the editor. But it's just not it's just really strange. It's a long story short, they're all converging on this one house. I don't know what the purpose of this home is. I don't know how these characters are interconnected. There's a woman who's just newly divorced. Her husband is a minister. She's afraid about leaving the rest of the congregation because of what's happening, because divorce means that they have to move to a different one. And then they have this other curly-haired woman who they refer to as Princess sometimes.
The daughter?
Yeah.
Yes, the lady's daughter, yeah.
Yeah, so she's obsessed with Wonder Woman. And then somehow they're also all expecting Wonder Woman as a guest as well. And the four of these women are going to spend the holidays together. And they share stories with each other. And then she kind of shares her story with Wonder Woman. And then, Wonder Woman they listen to carolers. They just do very like overtly group of women things like drink wine and eat all night, like. And they gossip and they talk about their lives and like they wash dishes. And one panel is devoted to them washing dishes.
Get in the kitchen, ladies.
Yeah. And it unfolds almost like the way that Hallmark movies look now, or like romantic comedies where there's like, female camaraderie. Like there's a scene where there's a silhouetted figure in the dark in a window, and another one of the ladies who, just has some last minute surprises to sneak under the tree, just like comes upon her, and then they have like a very inspirational chat. Like it's all very, very formula, and
then the chat ends up inspiring the woman.
The divorcee, newly divorced minister's wife.
To basically look on the bright side. And so you could say that this story is the equivalent of an inspirational quote, laid over top of the shot of like, the ocean or a mountain or something, right?
Yeah, basically the divorce lady. By the way, the reason that she had to get a divorce, her minister husband, he was running around with another lady from the congregation.
That's right.
Of course.
Yeah. So she tells Wonder Woman her story, and Wonder Woman has a lot of insecurities, right? She's like feeling like, I don't know, she's having issues with like her god, history or her background, the other gods or something. I don't know what's going on, but she doesn't feel like a Wonder Woman. She doesn't feel like a hero. And when she's talking to the lady helps her. And then at the end, Micah, the other lady tells the divorce lady, it's almost like you have a superpower.
No, he says, you sound like some kind of superhero.
Okay. There you go.
Wink, wink.
Now, if you can go to page 3 of this story, I believe. Okay. By the way, it sounds like you guys are fighting over there. The microphone's getting hit a lot.
Oh, you know what? It's probably because the comic is on top of the laptop.
Oh, that's why.
I don't know where the microphone is on this thing, but yeah, I'll take the comic off.
Oh, yeah, that might help. But it's on page 3. So right when the lady first shows up in the house and the other lady's taking her coat off and she's crying and they hug. If you look at the one panel there on the right, that's Donald Trump hugging her.
I will concur. It is Donald Trump. You're right.
I can't tell. The orange is so faded in this comic.
But man, that's Donald Trump's haircut. At least I know that much. So there you go. All right, so that's Wonder Woman. Yeah, not the best story, I would say.
Well, I'll just say I don't know much about Eric Shanowar, but he did do, I believe, a Wizard of Oz adaptation as well as some other stuff. I really do like his art. I think he's a great artist. I
don't like the art.
You don't like the art, eh? I really see. This is George Perez era, so I think it kind of fits in with George Perez. And these, I believe, the mother and the daughter are regular supporting characters in Wonder Woman at the time. So that explains that.
I would imagine they are just the way they're thinking and everything. But yeah.
I don't think the story's great. It's kind of like I don't know. Maybe you'd call this. You're an English major. You'd call this like portraiture, right?
Nope. I never heard that before.
Okay, basically, it's just one of those stories where nothing really happens, but they make it seem like something happens by the woman learning a lesson, and she's gonna turn her. It's kind of like I said. It's the equivalent of the inspirational quote, where you read the quote, but you don't actually change your life or do anything different, but you feel better about yourself because you read the quote, and that's basically what the story is. So it's kind of an attempt at being a drama instead of a superhero story, but it ends up being, like Jolie said, like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, and I guess, Christmas brought them together, though.
Yeah, but also I should point out, I don't want to make light of this, but the daughter character, I believe she went on to kill herself in Wonder Woman. I'm not kidding, yeah. I think the young girl did. I think she committed suicide later on.
Holy hell. Where was Superman?
Yeah.
It's in a cold-ass car.
Oh, man. Hell. Helping the other guy, I guess, yeah.
All right, Micah, well, let's go back to the Batman story, the second story. It's called And in the Depths.
Okay, this one, I don't really like it. It's written by...
Wow.
It was written by Dave Gibbons, who, of course, everyone knows from...
Watchmen.
Watchmen, yes, he drew Watchmen, and it's drawn by Morrow, who I'm a big fan of. He's a really good artist from this time. He did a lot of work for DC. it's not really a story. It's more like a poem. Well, not a poem, but you know what I mean. Sort of like a poem. And it's almost from the point of view of of the Batcave, and it's
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, and it's starting back in basically, I guess, ancient times, and you can see through the entrance to the Batcave, you're seeing like the environment change over time. Like there's trees, then there's like an ice age, then there's something else. Then you see bats come in
because the Earth has evolved, but the mouth of the cave never does.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
anyway.
And then you see a Native American sitting there. You see a pilgrim, and one of the themes running through this is that everyone's afraid to go into the cave, right? And then finally, it gets to a part where you see a bunch of bats chasing a rabbit into the cave, and then followed by a young Bruce Wayne, who falls down, and now it kind of switches point of view, and Bruce Wayne is looking at the rabbit that's been bit by the bat, and Bruce Wayne is scared. And then it kind of goes from there, and then it's kind of following Batman through his life, and you see Bruce Wayne. You see a really cool shot of Alfred and Bruce Wayne assembling, the primitive stages of the Bat Cave with just like, almost like a filing cabinet, kind of, and like a computer.
They're not putting together their home computer there?
Jeez. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but yeah, it's like a 1980s computer.
It's the Bat server.
Yeah. And then they introduce what looks like Dick Grayson. And then, of course, I guess they have a Christmas tree in the Batcave. Assuming this is all still taking place in the Batcave, there's a Christmas tree. Robin's got his Robin costume. There's the old 1950s Batmobile. And then, we see the evolution. Now we're seeing, the famous giant dinosaur, the giant penny, the Joker card, all of the famous trinkets in the Batcave. We see the crime computer. And then it kind of just goes from there. And then Batman and Robin are all happy. Alfred's happy, but then things start to change, and Dick Grayson's getting older, and then Dick Grayson just decides to leave Batman and go off to college or whatever, and now Batman's by himself. And then
taking the spirit of Christmas with him.
Yep.
And then they show a scene of Batman coming home from a crime or whatever he was doing and being injured.
Well, I think what happened there is he ate some bad chili. And then he's doubled over, grasping his side.
Yeah. And then basically now, the important thing to know about the story is it came out within, I believe, either 6 months or a year from a death in the family where Jason Todd, the second Robin, had been killed. So at this point in Batman, there was no Robin, right? And so it's a little bit confusing because the Robin that they showed was Dick Grayson, but now they're kind of making this allusion to this Robin flying into the cave and landing, and you see all these, what are these called? Like blankets or whatever are covering up the back computer and all the tables and stuff, and it's all dark and dingy. And then we see a bat is in the cave, but the bat is scared away by the Robin, right? And the Robin is standing in front of the Robin costume. So obviously that's supposed to be the idea that, this represents Robin, the other one represents Batman, the light, the dark, blah, blah, blah. And then the Robin flies away. And then the last little thing says, "For without darkness, light has no meaning. And long though the night has been, it cannot last forever." Yeah. And sure enough, within a few months, there was a new Robin in the form of, what was his name? Oh, geez, I can't remember his name. Robin 3.
Todd?
No, not Jason Todd. Tim Drake. There you go.
Oh, there.
Tim Drake. Yeah.
All right. Well,
that story.
I'm surprised you didn't like this, Michael. I thought you would have swooned over this.
It's okay, but it's a little bit pretentious for my taste. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. All right. I like the art. I thought it was a lot of heavy shadows and a lot of black, but I like it.
The art was really good. Gray Morrow is a great artist. I think he did like vampire stuff and stuff like that. And
that seems fitting. Yeah, it would seem like that kind of thing. Almost like a horror comic. Totally. The art. But,
maybe he even did an issue of I, Vampire.
But I like what he does with the panel designs and the way the pages are set up.
Absolutely.
Interesting things.
Yeah,
Jolie.
Really weirdly out of place for like a Christmas book.
Yes, that's the other thing. When I read this, I was like, wait, this is a Christmas story? I get that they put a Christmas tree in the back of some panels, but this isn't exactly cheerful.
No, it's not. And it's like, also, is this not exactly how you would expect Christmas at the Batman's to be? Like
the Batman's, Bruce Batman,
a Batman Christmas,
yeah,
is just as dark and dreary as you would hope and suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose.
All right, on to the next stinker.
Yes.
Oh, do you know what? Oh, okay, never mind.
This one is my least favorite. So this next one is called Silent Night. It's written and drawn by John Byrne, and it's finished by Andy Kubert. Andy Kubert is the son of Joe Kubert, who is an industry legend. And one of the things he's famous for is war comics. And I believe he was the creator or one of the most important writer-artists who worked on a character named Enemy Ace. And so this story is meant to emulate the look of Joe Kubert. And I've read it a whole bunch of times, and I got to say, I don't really understand what happens at the end. Right. I don't know if you do, Mike.
This was probably one of my favorite stories in the book. Probably my second favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we should summarize it?
Yeah, Joe Kubert, he created this character, like you said, because this story is based on Enemy Ace.
Yeah.
The Enemy Ace. And that's basically a ripoff of the Red Baron. Mm-hmm. Baron von Richthofen from the old World War I, the Snoopy and the Red Baron, that guy.
Sure, yeah.
That's what it's based on. So, yeah, it's called Silent Night, and the big selling point of this is there's no dialogue, no words.
Right.
Nothing.
It's silent.
Right.
Yeah, no narration at all, no boxes, nothing. It's just art. And you did mention it was drawn by John Byrne. And, yeah, like if you were just to show this to somebody, I don't know if they'd recognize John Byrne right away, because it seems like he tried to, like you said, draw maybe like a little like Kubert or whatever. But there are some hints that you can say, oh, yeah, that's John Byrne. But so basically, this is at a field hospital in World War I, a British field hospital, because you can tell by the Red Cross symbols on the nurses and stuff. And there's a guy who's wounded, and he's drawing a picture, and he draws a picture of the Red Baron. This Enemy Ace guy is playing. And one of the other injured guys comes over and knocks the pictures out of his hands. Say, "Yeah, how dare you celebrate this guy? He's murdered all our buddies." Because then they show a panel on the wall of like all the names of the people who have been missing or shot down, and he's like, "You can't be celebrating this guy." And we also see a shot of the kitchen, and it shows how many days it's been since they've had supplies, and the cook is making up just a can of beans for dinner. So that's
because there's a countdown for that, or a count up, which is strange. But anyway.
Well, they're saying, hey, we haven't had supplies in 45 days. Hey, Larry, how long has it been since we've had supplies? Let me check the wall. 5 days. Yeah. So
that's a case of poor storytelling because it's supposed to be silent, but they got to have a sign on the wall, right? But anyway.
Well, actually, that's actually excellent storytelling because how else can you convey that unless you put these little clues on the walls and stuff? And then, so the guys had the fight. The injured soldiers had a fight over the one guy drawing the pictures of the Red Baron, and so everything's traumatic now. But then, the guy cups his hand to his ear, and the nurse freaks out. They can hear something coming. It's an airplane. Are they under attack? Oh no! Look, it's Enemy Ace. It's the Red Baron himself. The guy coming in here. He lands his plane. He's here. He's the enemy. The guy who's killed us all. What's he going to do? Oh, he pulls out a package of food. Look at that. And he hands it to him. He goes, here you go. Here's some food for your Christmas dinner. And he's about to leave, and the nurse says, no, why don't you come in and have dinner with us? So they cook up this big turkey that Enemy Ace brought to him. They're playing some music. The nurse is dancing with them. Everyone's having a grand old time. And then Enemy Ace notices on the wall all the dead guys, all the list of dead and missing. And he looks at and he notices all the names. He looks at them, and he salutes them. But then the guy who had drawn the Red Baron's picture earlier, he sneaks up behind him with a gun, and he's going to kill him. And Enemy Ace just stands there, looking at him, just staring at him, Michael. He's not worried at all. And now the other guy, the guy with the big handlebar mustache who had gotten all mad that the guy with the gun was drawing pictures of the Red Baron earlier, he stops him. And he says, no, you don't kill him. And he's like chastising him. He's like, this is Christmas, damn it. We're having a dinner. We're loving everybody. And so Enemy Ace goes to shake that guy's hand, and the guy just says no. And he just points to the door and tells him to leave. So Enemy Ace leaves, flies away, and that's the end of the story.
Sure is.
I enjoyed it.
No, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I guess that's what was confusing me is I don't know anything about Enemy Ace. I didn't know quite what was going on, but it was good, though. It was solid.
Yeah, knowing who Enemy Ace is really helps. Because, I didn't know either, and I had to look it up. And I'm like, who the and yeah, so, but once you put it all together, it's like a little puzzle. You got to figure out what the hell's going on. So I kind of like it.
And I do like, I like Joe Kubert's inks because it does make it, it gives it that, or sorry, Andy Kubert's inks because it gives it that Joe Kubert vibe. I really like that. Yeah.
And notice the story is kind of framed by that picture of the downed airplane too in the background. Great. Yeah. So that's nice. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. Jolie?
I would say that I enjoyed it the most out of all of the stories. Not to say that I enjoyed it a lot, but like it wasn't the worst. It was the best of the worst. Because there was like without the text, without the dialogue, it forced you to figure out what the story was.
Yes.
And which was really easy. I don't know who Enemy Ace is either. I didn't bother to look it up, but you realize once you see all the iron crosses he's adorned with that he is the enemy. So, there's a lot of symbolism drawn into it. There's a lot of the expression and the hints kind of push the story along, and it's a really good example of Christmas storytelling.
Yeah.
I think. I just thought he was maybe like a ghost because I was like, are they seeing the ghost of him? Because they keep coming back to this downed airplane, but maybe I'm not like I wasn't sure what the symbolism was other than to like remind you of war.
Well, that downed airplane was one of the planes that he had shot down because that's an Allied plane there or a good guy plane. They weren't the Allies, I don't think. But yeah, so it just shows you that he's the guy who's killed all these people. Yet on Christmas they come together as one, as a human family of fellow humans to enjoy Christmas.
At Christmas, we all need to eat, and then we get back to the bloody business of war.
Although I should point out, Michael, that in this entire issue, there is not one punch is thrown. You know?
That's exactly why I love it, and that's why I love DC.
I don't know. I feel like those two were really going at it.
Almost.
They were close, but not one punch was thrown. But I think even at Christmas time, like, I'm pretty sure that baby Jesus dropped one of the wise men with a left hook. So I would appreciate some fighting. You know, I would like some punches. That's all I'm saying. Christmas or no Christmas. I want to brawl.
One small woman pushed out a baby with no meds. I would have punched somebody too.
It was a manger. They didn't have meds. What could they do?
Oh yeah.
All right. So next, Michael, roll call.
All right. So this story is written by, pardon me, Bill Loebs, aka William Messner Loebs, who at the time I believe was the regular writer on The Flash. He also wrote Wonder Woman for a while, and he's actually, I think, a Michigan native. So I've met him a couple times. He's a really cool guy. The art is by Colleen Doran, who was a fairly big artist at the time. She's also a Facebook friend. I love her art. And the inks are by Ty Templeton, who I've also met. Ty Templeton is, I believe, a Toronto native. He is definitely Canadian, and he has a long history with DC drawing Justice League International. He did a lot of the Batman Adventures comics, which were based on the animated series from the 90s. So Ty Templeton usually does stories that are intended for either younger audiences or more retro stories, right? Like stuff like this. Because even though this is 1989, at this point, both of these characters were dead. I believe, Flash was dead, Green Lantern was not dead, but this is definitely supposed to take place approximately in the 1970s when the Justice League was living in their satellite and all that stuff. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's how it's even introduced. It's like long before the JLI, there was the JLA, and here they are hanging out with their feet up, kicking back because it's Christmas time. And I have to say, this is probably like, I liked the war story. It felt very 1920s Christmassy. But this story it was fun.
Mm-hmm. This is probably my favorite story.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
This to me is, again, this was right, like, because I was a diehard Marvel fan for a few years, and this was right around when I started to get into DC, mostly because of the Batman movie, right? And so this was one of the earlier DC comics I had, but this was one of the stories that really showed me, I think, how DC was a little bit more, I'm not sure what the word is, but...
Terrible?
No. Sentimental, old-fashioned...
Sappy?
Maybe a little bit sappy. Like, you could definitely not see this same story with, like, Thor and Iron Man, right?
Yeah, it'd be way better.
Or the Hulk and Black Widow. Like, this is definitely a DC-ish type of story, and these are DC characters, and that's why I love it.
Which is really funny because the cinematic universe wins points with this kind of scene now. Mm-hmm. Like, where they're just talking and interacting as human heroes. Right. Yeah. And we fault DC for doing this in their comics, but we reward Marvel Cinematic Universe for doing it in their films. So It's really weird. Anyway, sitting around talking about Christmas, X-raying all of the gifts under the tree. Cheaters. So Green Lantern and Flash are sitting around on the JLA satellite monitoring for calls or whatever it is they do. And they basically decide, okay, well, we're bored, but let's go on an adventure. And so they basically beam down to Earth, and it's not snowing, but it's raining. And so they're kind of walking around, and they run into this old man who is getting mugged. So then they beat up the mugger, and 1 second here, and then basically once they discover that this guy is actually like a millionaire, I think. He's rich.
He's one of the richest men in the world.
Right, CB Fenster. And so he is kind of upset because, tonight I realized that humanity is worthless. Tonight I offered a fortune to any of my guests, the best and brightest, who could prove to me that there is a Santa Claus. All refused. They laughed. And so Flash and Green Lantern, well, actually Flash specifically, he gets an idea that they're going to prove to this guy that humanity is not as bad as he thinks it is. Oh, he also says, people are different now. The difference is Santa Claus. When Santa Claus existed, he brought joy into the world. Now there's nothing. So for a kid who's reading this, obviously they think Santa Claus is real, right? And so this story is meant for them, right? So this guy is out to prove that this guy doesn't think Santa Claus still exists, but Flash and Green Lantern are going to prove he does exist. So they rush around and get him a cobbled together Santa Claus costume, and then Green Lantern creates a sleigh made out of green energy, and Flash pulls it along because he's the fastest man alive. And then they decide they're going to, this is where it gets awesome, they're going to deliver gifts to all the boys and girls of the world. And so we get a scene where a young boy and girl are sitting up waiting for Santa, and Green Lantern and Flash land on the roof. The guy doesn't know how he's going to get down the chimney, but I didn't know Green Lantern could do this. But he creates like this big, what do you call it, like a funnel? Yeah, and basically, funnel. I guess the idea is when this guy jumps into it, it's going to shrink him down and make him fit into the chimney. And so so the kids are sitting there. See, Michael, I told you, it's been hours and no Santa. Yeah, Wandy, nuts. I probably should have bet you my video games that he'd come. And then, of course, the guy comes, tumbling down the chimney, all the smoke, around him. And then he's got a little clipboard. He's like, "Okay, listen, kid, here's a teddy. Sign here, okay? I got to keep moving. Let's see." He said, "Put my finger aside of my nose." Whoosh! And then he goes back up the chimney, and then the boy says, "Well, we saw him." And the girl says, "Uh-huh. I thought it would be a little more inspiring somehow." So obviously this is, done for comedic effect. And then, then the guy runs into a woman, and she's got a story, and she's putting together a bike for her kids, and she's single. And then I love it because they cut off in the middle of a conversation, and then when it cuts up to the scene of coming out of the chimney, Green Lantern's got a little stopwatch, and he's like, "You're late." And then the guy says, "Sorry, the chain was twisted." And then Flash says, "I don't want to know." And they just go on to the next thing. I love it. Great writing.
Yeah, basically, the chain was twisted is a euphemism, right? He banged that lady, right?
Oh, yeah? Okay.
That's why he was late.
Oh, I got you.
They made the sweet, sweet love under the Christmas tree. And Green Lantern and Flash are waiting up on the roof the whole time.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened.
A whole new dimension to this story. So anyway, so then he drops in on, this is a Jewish guy, right? And so the Jewish guy is, he's
very Jewish in the way he's talking.
Yes, he's got the New York Jewish accent. I don't know where they're supposed to be, but he's got the accent. And so this guy's in a good mood. Oh, and basically his story is that he's lonely. He just wants someone to talk to. And so this Fenster gives him a teddy bear, and then he takes off, and then
well, my favorite is the guy before he leaves. He goes, "Listen, Mr. Xanta, if you run into any of your elf friends and they don't have a thing to do, they just maybe want to talk." And the Santa guy goes, "Yeah, I'll tell him," and he just leaves. This guy is so lonely. He's begging, pleading for a human connection, and this Santa guy goes, "Yeah, I'll tell him. See you later, buddy," and he just leaves.
Well, it is kind of sad. I think there's a layer of melancholy underneath the whole story, but whatever. But so then it goes from there. So then they're almost done. But
they pull out the phone book to see who they've missed.
Mm-hmm. And then they basically say, "Well, we failed, Mr. Fenster. Santa Claus never overlooks anyone."
They missed one house.
Right, because they missed one house, so the whole mission was a bust. Yeah. And then the guy's like, "Well, I guess that's true." And then Green Lantern says, "Then I guess we'll be leaving. Sorry we wasted your time, Fenster." And they leave. But then Fenster sees a car, and he walks over to the car. And earlier, so this is why they missed the house, is because there was a fire at the house, and the family is now living in this car. And so they show the mother with the two kids sleeping in the back seat, and then the father's in the front seat. And then basically he says, "Well, so he's like, what does he say here? But if the guy says, but if you've got more toys, why not take them down the street to the shelter? There are people that are worse off than us." So basically, the guy learns a lesson that it's all, relative. And
Fester learns a lesson, not Harper.
Yeah, Fester learns a lesson that this guy just lost his house, but he's still got the spirit of Christmas in him, right?
Because he has two gifts for his wife, Michael, this guy.
Exactly.
Tell them what the gifts are. Do you remember?
What is it? A rose? A silk flower?
A can of sardines. Their favorite.
Exactly.
And a silk flower, because that won't wilt in the cold.
See, you got to appreciate what you got, right?
Of all the things they could have picked, a can of sardines.
I love sardines.
Yikes.
I'm vegetarian and I love sardines. But anyway.
It's so weird.
So they reconvene with Flash and Green Lantern, and then Flash is talking to Fenster, and you can see in the background Green Lantern, because he's a superhero. He's got little sock puppets made out of green energy, and he's entertaining the kids with them. And Flash is talking to Fenster, and he's like, "We had a hunch, two hunches. Actually, one was where we might find the Harpers. The other, where we would finally find the Santa you've been looking for." So Fenster realizes all along he was the Santa he was looking for, right? And then at the end of the story...
Yeah, because it may have slipped his awareness when he was dressed as Santa going around all the houses in the world delivering presents. He probably never realized throughout that whole time that he was actually the Santa.
Well, this brings it all home. Brings it all back home.
It just dawned on him all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm Santa. Yikes.
Right. So then at the end, everyone is now in the Jewish guy's house, right? Yep. And they're all celebrating Christmas, even though he's Jewish. And no, but then Green Lantern says, so the Jewish guy says, "Well, and isn't this nice?" And then Green Lantern says, we do what we can, sir. Happy Hanukkah, Flash." And Flash says, "And a Merry Christmas to you, pal." And
again, in my version of the story, when they all show up at that guy's apartment to party, they open the door and he has hung himself.
I was going to say the Jewish guy's definitely dead in your story.
Yeah. So.
Oh, do you know what? I almost forgot about the next one.
Mm-hmm.
I forget it. The Batman ones, or the war story is not my favorite. This one is my favorite.
This one is great.
Yeah, this next one is actually my favorite as well. But yeah, that's Lantern and Flash one. That was not. I didn't like that at all.
You were a fan.
Superhero fun.
I did not like that.
I guess I'm going to challenge you. Do you even love superheroes, Mike Dell?
Yes, I do.
Because this is a superhero fun story, and that's why I love it.
All right.
Okay, so in this last story, we should give a little bit of setup for people that don't know who Deadman is. Deadman is kind of a superhero, but he's actually dead. And he really has no superpowers other than being able to
insert himself.
Yeah, like basically he possesses people, and then while he's possessing them, they're like not aware of what's going on, and then he possesses them for a few hours, then he leaves them, and then they have no memory of what happened, right?
Kind of like he's the Rohypnol of superheroes.
The what?
The Rohypnol. The
essentially,
THC, the date rape drug of superheroes.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I was going for.
I guess, but you know what? It kind of reminds me of Quantum Leap. Wasn't that what Quantum Leap was? Where he was in their body, but they weren't conscious or something? He was the one that was conscious of Quantum Leap, right? Am I right about that?
I never watched Quantum Leap.
Okay, it's kind of, I think it's similar to this. But anyway, that was time travel. This is Ghost.
But here's the thing. I had no knowledge of Deadman at all until this.
Okay.
Like, I had seen pictures of him occasionally, and I always thought he looked pretty cool, but I had no concept of him. So tell the kids the backstory of Deadman, Micah. Wasn't he like a carnival performer?
Yeah, I believe he was. And then during one of his stunts, he was murdered. And then he woke up, or whatever you want to say, as this ghost. And he's still wearing his circus costume that he had when he was a normal person. So his real name is Boston Brand. But now he's sort of a superhero. But the problem is that, like we said, he's a ghost. So he can only interact with people by possessing other, like, people that are alive. And so, for example, there's stories where, in Brave and the Bold, where he'll team up with Batman, but he's never really visible to Batman. He has to, like, possess other people, I think, as far as I know. Yeah.
I got to tell you, this was my first experience with the Deadman, and I'm a big fan. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was, I liked the concept.
Well, like I said, it would be a great concept for like a TV show like Quantum Leap, where every episode, right, he could possess a different person and then have a little adventure. The adventure wraps up, and then he just goes on to the next adventure, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely a cool idea. And so Deadman basically
is scoping out a man named John Turner Danforth, 45 years old, another, like, just rich white guy. Let's steal his life for a day. And just... That's a little bit like, I like the concept, but that's strange.
He doesn't. He just goes into his body so he can send some perfume, some expensive perfume, to his former love at the carnival.
Oh, is that what he did? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
The Hill Brothers Circus. Okay.
Yeah, so he's basically just swiping money out of this rich guy to give a Christmas present to his former love, and then he just leaves that guy's body, and he floats around.
Oh.
So then, he's floating around, and then he leaves the guy, and then there's a great part on the second page or third page where he says, this is Deadman talking, Christmas is not my favorite time of year. Too damn much goodwill floating around, not enough for me to do, too much time to be alone, right? So Deadman is sad. And so then he floats over to the skating rink, and he possesses the body of a girl who's skating. Then he jumps over to a different guy, to a guy who's skating with a different girl. And there's actually a funny part where he's like, good body, strong, athletic, and aroused. Definitely aroused.
Yes, this Christmas issue is very sexual in nature. We had Superman being a prostitute. We had the Santa Claus having sweet, sweet love with that lady under the Christmas tree. And now we have this. He's aroused. Definitely aroused.
And so it's actually pretty cool because then the guy starts making out with a girl. So Deadman, I think originally was like, okay, well, I'm going to get out of here. Then the guy starts making out with the girl. So then Deadman's like, what the hell? It's just a party, right? So he's going to continue to possess this guy's body throughout the rest of however long it takes. So they go to this little Christmas get-together. They're all hanging out. And he's kind of narrating. He's like, I pick up the names pretty quickly. Most of them I can glean from the tags and the presents. They're nice people, nice normal people, and I'm one of them. And it kind of goes from there. And then he kind of realizes, he's like, I would, it's like any Christmas Eve I ever had as a kid when Dad would carry in the bird and cleave it, and Cleve and I would carve it, and Mom would serve us yams and stuffing. Except it's not my Christmas at all. It's his, Paul's. So then he feels guilty, and he decides to leave the guy, right? And let him have his Christmas back, right? So then he takes off, and he floats off to find the next adventure. And then, of course, he's got to have a little melodramatic scene. This is where, so this is kind of tying into Deadman's origin, how he got his powers. Damn you, Rama. Is this the reward I get for serving you and your damn Lords of Order? Am I supposed to be grateful for this? So then he's all down on himself. But then, all of a sudden, out of the blue, this woman walks up. Now, as we pointed out earlier, Deadman is a ghost, right? So no one can see him, including superheroes like Batman and Superman. But someone walks up and starts talking to him. What? You can see me? Obviously, cute costume, very seasonal. So this blonde woman starts talking to him, and they kind of start swapping stories, basically. And then they're kind of walking around, hanging out, chatting, and she pulls off his mask and can see what he really looks like.
Yeah. See, this is what confused. This is what I didn't like. I didn't like the fact, is this really a mask? So he doesn't really look like that?
That's, as far as I know, yeah. That's what's funny is Deadman does not look like that. That's just his circus mask. But for some reason, he continues to wear it.
Yes, that's what I don't like. I want him to look, because for those who've never seen Deadman, he's like bald, in white, like almost like Solomon Grundy, without hair. And so he looks like a cadaver, kind of. And he's in a fancy red outfit with a big high collar and elf boots. And he's got a big D on his belly. So I like the outfit. I like the look of the character, but I don't like the idea that it's a mask. I want him to actually look like that.
You know what's funny is they did like a reboot in the 90s where he looked like a zombie, like skeletal with bones sticking out, but it didn't really last. So I think they tried your idea.
Well, I like this look. I just don't make it a mask. Just make.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Like, yeah, make him actually be zombie-esque.
Yeah.
With white skin and. Yep. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because they take the mask off and he's a handsome fella.
Right, just a regular guy. Yeah, so it's kind of weird that Ghost is wearing this.
No one can see you. Why are you still wearing the mask?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Okay, that's fine. So then basically, again, he's kind of depressed. It's Christmas. He's alone. So this woman kind of, again, talks him off the ledge. Suicide is kind of a running theme in this book.
Yes.
And so then she's like, okay, well, I've got to go. I have business to attend to. Merry Christmas, Boston. Hey, wait a minute. You didn't explain. Who are you? How can you see me? I don't even know your name. And then she says, my name is Kara, though I doubt that'll mean anything to you. And then he says, she was right. It didn't. I still don't know anything about her other than what she gave me that night. And I've got the feeling I never will. Like maybe that was the whole point. Merry Christmas, Kara, whoever you are. Then it says, respect and admiration for the works of Otto Binder and Jim Mooney. We still remember. Okay, what were you going to say, Mike Dell?
Well, yeah, she gave him a little pep talk because he wasn't feeling like, a hero, or he was just miserable. And she has a really good line here somewhere about why they do what they do, being heroes, and now I can't really find it. We do it because it needs to be done, because if we don't, no one else will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's supposed to be Supergirl?
There you go. Jolie figured it out. This is Supergirl, okay?
Yeah. See, I had no idea. Like, when she said her name was Kara, I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. So I actually had to look it up. And then when I saw Supergirl, like this, I'm sure like longtime DC readers would obviously recognize her right away by the name and her appearance. And she also has the red earrings. I'm guessing that's a distinctive trait of Supergirl. Did she wear the red earrings?
Maybe at the time. I don't remember. But the important thing to know is that Supergirl was dead at this time. She had died in Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985-86. But not only was Supergirl dead, she was erased from continuity. So she didn't exist, okay?
Except for to be the ghost of Christmas past here.
Right. So when this issue came out, now this is the one thing I don't understand about how DC and Marvel work, is that you know how Marvel had the editor-in-chief, they'd have Jim Shooter, then later they had Tom DeFalco. Well, DC had the same thing, except he had a different title, but they had a president and a publisher. So there was definitely someone who was calling the shots, right? But somehow, despite the fact that Supergirl did not exist in continuity, DC was able to publish this story, and it pissed off the people who were doing Superman at the time. So the editor of Superman at the time was Mike Carlin. This book was edited by Mark Waid, okay? But the other thing is the artist on this was Dick Giordano, who was, I believe, the vice president of DC. So I think it was kind of an FU to the DC, editors who had erased Supergirl from continuity. And here we have Dick Giordano and Mark Waid saying, you know what, screw it. We're going to let this guy do what he wants. He's got Supergirl in the story. We're going to let it go through. And so this basically created a continuity, kind of blunder. But, fans liked it and Mark Waid liked it. So they got away with it.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, it's not like, again, he doesn't know who she is. He doesn't know the name because she never existed, right? So she's just kind of living off in a limbo somewhere. But yeah, I enjoy it. And the Dick Giordano art was great. This is like classic comic book art.
Right.
It was awesome. So yeah, I was a big fan of this Deadman thing. Jolie, did you like the Deadman?
I think that was one of the first things I said was this one was fun. Just purely because of who Deadman is. It's strange what he does. It shouldn't be a premise for a book, yet it is. I want to see a TV show. I want to see a movie. I want stuffed toys. I don't know. Just weird. Just it's like a culmination of all of the stuff that we the covertly sexual stuff we read. And it's just for lack of a better word, exploded into the last story.
Erupted.
And the book erupted into the final story, the final and best story, I guess.
I also want to ask, so Mike Dell, you didn't do any research into the writer here, Alan Brennert, right?
No, I did not.
So he's actually a author, television producer, and screenwriter. And I know his name because he did a handful of Batman stories for DC, but apparently he's been working in TV for decades. He wrote for the Wonder Woman TV series, Buck Rogers, LA Law, The New Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Stargate Atlantis, Star Trek Enterprise. And so he's an established writer. And so I think he's done, like I said, a handful of Batman stories that have all been collected. So you can get his 5 or 10 stories altogether. But other than that, I'm looking at his bibliography. He's only done maybe 3 comics for Marvel and maybe 7 comics for DC. So this is one of the few stories he did in comics. So
he wasn't even a regular Did Deadman have a series?
He did at one point, but not during this time period. No.
Oh, so because when I was reading this, I just figured, this guy's probably the regular Deadman writer.
No.
Because he really gives you a glimpse inside the character here. I feel I know Deadman now since I've read this. I would be intrigued to read more Deadman. I think this is the stuff from DC I like. This kind of stuff and the old All-Star Squadron we've talked about before, the older heroes.
Okay.
The original Sandman and the Spectre, that kind of stuff. That's what I like from DC. Dr. Fate.
Some good stuff there. But what about Hal Jordan and Barry Allen in the other stories?
Not a fan.
Okay.
Nope.
I mean, that's understandable. The old Justice Society characters are a different vibe, and I definitely like them too, so I can understand why you like them.
So then the issue ends with a little note from Mark Waid, the editor.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Again, this is Jolie. The tone of this issue is very weird. Like you said, very sexual underneath the surface, and a lot of suicidal stuff and depression. And then in this little story, Mark Waid tells about the death of John Lennon. Merry Christmas.
It's and do you know what? It really it wraps it up nicely because I was like, where are they going with all these stories? What is the common connector? And Mark Waid tells this great story about how he's working at college radio in 1980, and that's when the news came in that John Lennon had been shot outside of his home, and him and his friends are at this radio station reminiscing and talking about John Lennon, and they're together. And that's what this whole strange issue of Christmas stories is about. It's about being together during really emotionally vibrant times. And whether it's divorce or thoughts of suicide or ghosts of Christmas past haunting you in the streets of New York, or people just not believing in Santa. Rich guys have existential crises too. It's the common denominator that'll save us all is togetherness.
Yeah, kind of like when Batman ate that bad chili, and then Alfred was there to help him out of the Batmobile. The same.
They were in it together.
Yeah, together. But yeah, so an interesting issue overall, Michael.
There's a reason I read it every year at Christmas. Love it.
Because you're a lonely, lonely man? Is that why? Or, yeah, I don't know.
Every year I've got a gun pointed to my chin. I read this issue and then I'm A-okay.
Well, thank God this issue.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Flea Market Fantasy listeners. Anyway.
So, Jolie, 1 out of 10, what would you give Christmas with the Superheroes number 2?
I give Christmas with the Superheroes number 2 a solid 3.
Yeah.
Out of 10. And I give Mark Waid's really awesome backup text story about John Lennon like a 10. That was the best part. It really wrapped it up for me, and I was like, you know what, that just made this whole slog 100% better. And the joy about having the actual issue is that you get these really fun photos of Conan in advertisements. But
the ads.
The Mark Waid, the digital copy that I read had the letter from Mark Waid included, and it was the best thing I've ever read. I've listened to him at conventions. Mm-hmm. He's just such a good reteller of stories, and even this big letter, it made this okay. Joy, it pushed this into the 5 zone.
Oh, okay.
5 out of 10. 3 is. I feel like I'm being rude to a Christmas spirit by giving it a 3, so I'll give it a 5.
Mike L., I know you're going 10, right? You love this.
No, I'll give it an 8. I mean, I like every story to varying degrees. I like all the writing, all the art to varying degrees. So definitely an 8 out of 10.
It's a polite assessment. I liked every one of them to varying degrees.
Well, no, what I mean is I didn't dislike any of the writing, and I didn't dislike any of the art. Some I like more than others, you know.
I disliked a lot of the writing, and I disliked a lot of the art. So I'm going to go for 3. I have no problem offending the spirit of Christmas. But I really like the Deadman. I would be intrigued to read more Deadman. So that's good. And the war story was kind of nifty. But the others just were brutal to me.
What about Batman?
It just seemed to... I enjoyed the art. And you know what, Michael? I'll give it a 4 because I forgot about... But it just seemed like a little depressing overall.
The issue or the Batman story?
The Batman story.
Yeah.
And the issue a little bit overall. I don't know. So I'll give it a 4 just because you mentioned that story and I forgot how much I like the art. Okay. But overall, the big takeaway from this is Deadman for me.
Okay. Well, Deadman, I don't know if you're a Neil Adams fan, but Deadman does have many stories drawn by Neil Adams, so maybe check those out.
All right, yeah. Maybe on a future issue of Flea Market Fantasy.
There you go. All right.
Special Deadman issue.
I guess that wraps up the big Christmas episode of Flea Market Fantasy. Actually, the second Christmas episode this month, right?
Yes, thank God there are no more holidays. Wait, you're not going to do like a St. Valentine's Day special issue?
Well, you just wait until we get to President's Day, okay? Then you're going to see some holiday spirit.
All right, can't wait.
All right. Until next week, this has been Flea Market Fantasy. See you next time.